So the college football news cycle cares absolutely nothing about Week 0. Here we are on the eve of Week 0 on this Friday, August 22nd, as this is coming out. And all the news that came out this week, such as the SEC's new conference scheduling model, and also the College Football Playoff Committee's new metrics that they've announced. Week 0 seems to be just an afterthought. But we're going to talk a little bit about Week 0. We're going to obviously cover these two things that I just mentioned, huge things that dropped here. One of these just a few moments ago. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about my college football playoff predictions. I know I was going to do this next week. I decided to go ahead and get that done today, get it out of the way before the Week 0 games happen. That and more. It's college football, y'all. Brandon Taylor here. Appreciate you wherever you are, however you may be watching or listening. I really do appreciate it. So, what happened today? Well, the SEC decided that they were going to drop this just, a day or two after the College Football Playoff Committee announced their new metrics, which we'll get to in a moment. But the SEC deciding that they're going to go to a 9-game conference schedule. Now, this has been something that's been talked about for a few years now. You can remember this discussion even back when Nick Saban was still a coach, a couple years before he even retired. He was pushing for this 9-game conference schedule. But a lot of this push seems to be, at least here lately, has been coming from the Big Ten. The Big Ten and the Big 12 have had a 9-game conference schedule model for some time now. And they think, well, it's unfair. We're up here, we're having to play almost all of our games in conference. Why do y'all get to play all those, easy, FCS teams and lesser teams, and we have to play these really tough Big Ten opponents every week? And then you would have people on the SEC side that would say, well, 8 games or not, 8 games in the SEC is way tougher than 9 games in the Big Ten. Some people would probably take that further and say, well, if the SEC played a 6-game conference schedule, that would still be tougher than a 9-game Big Ten schedule. But nevertheless, this was going to happen regardless. Did I mind the 8-game conference schedule for the SEC? I didn't mind it at all. Honestly. But I knew that this is where it was going to end up going. I think we're going to have a lot better play on the field. I think the teams are going to be better. Yeah, there's always the thing that the SEC beats up on each other every single season. But honestly, if there's a greater chance to have better games from week to week, I'm all for that. And, if you remember the 2020 COVID year, the SEC played a 10-game conference schedule. It was just 10 games, all in conference. And there were some great matchups, and I really enjoyed that. And this feels like it'd be similar to that. Obviously, 9 games instead of 10. But I feel like there's maybe some mixed reviews. I think a lot of people are probably okay with it. But, you're going to have a lot of deflectors out there. Mainly people that support some of the lower tier teams in the SEC. And I don't blame them at all. Because in their mind, it's tough enough to get the wins that they can get. This makes it even tougher because you have just another week out of the year that you don't get to play a guaranteed win. You have to face a conference opponent that's going to be at least as tough as you are. If you are in that bottom tier. The playoff ramification of this, I think, is key. The playoff committee announced some new metrics just a couple of days ago, and one of those being a greater emphasis on strength of schedule, something that I thought they should have already been considering, and I guess to an extent they have. The other main metric that they're changing is a more emphasis on strength of record. I'll explain these. Basically, with this greater emphasis on strength of schedule, teams are going to benefit from scheduling those tough games. So the SEC playing one tougher game each year could benefit them. Winning against high-quality opponents increases playoff stock. Losing to lesser opponents will hurt more than before. So let's look at it this way. You've got an 11-1 team, and then you've got a 9-3 team. And you're trying to judge which one of these teams has the greater playoff stock. That 11-1 team could have had 10 wins against, lesser opponents. And that one loss could have been against a good team. Okay. So you think, okay. They won against these lesser opponents. They had a pretty easy schedule. They lost to one pretty good team. And then you got the 9-3 team over here that had, let's see, their 3 losses were against top 20, top 15 opponents. And they won 9 games. So they beat a pretty good opponent and they beat all the lesser opponents. This is just an example. Which team would be ahead? What would they be, pretty equal? They would at least be equal, right? This seems oddly familiar than a little scenario that happened last season with a team in Indiana. Something in my throat. Let's see. But nevertheless, I've also noticed that teams were looking to not really schedule tough non-conference games. I remember one in particular between Ole Miss and Southern Cal. Ole Miss was supposed to go to L.A. this season, actually, and play Southern Cal. And this was a home-and-home, Power 4 matchup. And that would have been amazing to see. USC, and I'm sure USC and Ole Miss kind of mutually agreed to, sever the ties and cancel this game because, quite frankly, how would this help these two teams? Because you got USC there, and they're kind of trampled in their conference. Ole Miss could easily be trampled in theirs. They need all the help they can get. But that was before this. So now, if they play that game this year and say Ole Miss wins, that's a quality opponent. That is a quality Power 4 opponent that would increase stock. So I think teams will be incentivized to schedule tougher opponents. Obviously, the SEC is going to have one tougher game because I would consider any in-conference SEC game to be tough. Yeah, I know you've got the lower, you've got the Vanderbilts, the Mississippi States, the Kentuckys, the Arkansas down there. But even then, anything can happen on a given Saturday in the SEC. We've seen that. We saw it last year. We see it every year. No matter if you're at the top or you're at the very bottom of the conference, anything can happen in that league. It's just, it means more. Now, in the Big Ten, yeah, there are some good teams. You've got a very good, high, top-loaded bit of the conference. The middle part just steps down significantly, but they're all probably equal. And then the bottom is just absolutely terrible. So this changes everything. So I think from here on out, we'll see better quality games, which is better for you and I, the fans. But it could negatively affect your team. I think this ultimately, this is a win for the SEC. This is how the SEC can get more teams in the conference. Because automatically, they're going to have tougher schedules versus teams in the other conferences. And then you can lose three games. You can go 9-3, some SEC teams did last year, and you probably make it in. If these metrics were in place last year, you probably make it in, whether that's at Ole Miss or South Carolina. but I don't want to argue that point. I don't want to go back in time and argue that point. But now that the College Football Playoff Committee and the SEC has taken all the air out of the room when it comes to Week 0, I'm still going to talk about Week 0. And that's what I'm going to do right now before we move on to our playoff predictions. And, this slate is not too incredible, but we do have this Iowa State-Kansas State game to look forward to. 11 a.m. Central, that'd be noon Eastern on ESPN. Dublin, Ireland. So this game is actually going to be kicking at 5 p.m. in Ireland, which is funny. If you're looking here on YouTube, you'll see that the Stanford-Hawaii game in Hawaii is going to be kicking off at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. The funny thing about that is this Iowa State-Kansas State game, when it ends, it's probably going to be about dark. See, let's see, 5, 6. Yeah, it'll probably be about dark, if not, full darkness when that game's over in Ireland. So then later on in the day, when you tune in to Stanford at Hawaii at 6:30 Eastern, it's going to be the middle of the day. The sun's going to be high up in the sky, and you're going to be watching that game live. So it's going to be a little bit tricky, but I like little quirky things like that. But as we look at the rest of the slate here, you got Idaho State at UNLV, and this game means absolutely nothing other than the fact that Dan Mullen is coaching at UNLV, and I'll be interested to see how he performs there with the Rebels this season. Next, at 5:30 Eastern on Fox, you got Fresno State at Kansas. At 6 p.m. on CBS Sports Network, Sam Houston at Western Kentucky. And like I said a moment ago, on CBS at 6:30 Eastern, Stanford at Hawaii. It's football, folks. There's 5 games right there. You can sit there on your couch all day, watch these games. Obviously, there's going to be some carryover there in those last 3 matchups. But nevertheless, it's football. I'm going to watch, and I'm going to enjoy it. So, Kansas State is still favored by 3 points. I did pick Iowa State, and so I'll pick Iowa State and the points. I think it'll be a close game. Weird, because, the team, you would think the team is over there all week, acclimating to the difference in time and all those things, practicing over there and such. So, it could be a weird game. I really don't know why we do this, but I'm not complaining. It's football. So before we move on to the playoff prediction, I want to talk about this right here. So if you're like me and you're listening to this, watching this, you're probably a diehard fan of college football because you clicked on this because those 2 words, college football, and the little football there in the logo maybe. You and I share an interest. Football ever since I was a kid. I grew up in Southeastern Conference country. Ever since I was a kid, I was all about college football. It was everything to me. Okay. I didn't get a chance as a child to go to many football games, but I really appreciated when I did. I really appreciated when I got to watch my team on TV because in the mid-2000s, and mid to late 2000s, not every football game was on TV like it is now. You can't watch every football game on every device at any time from anywhere. It was just a different time. And a lot of times my team, I might get to see them on television maybe 2 or 3 times a year. That's just how it was. It was radio, basically. I could listen to the broadcast on the radio. I remember playing NCAA. It was NCAA 08. I played NCAA 06. I had 02, 03. I had all those on the PlayStation 2. I remember playing these matchups that week before it happens, and obviously my team would win. I was not gonna lose. Playing my team on the video game, and that was a big part of my childhood as well. And doing the what do you call it? The Heisman, what is it where you create a player and you go through your 4 years of college. I just straight up drew a blank. But anyway, I remember playing that mode and dreaming of being in college, going through practices, going through the games, doing all that. Now, I did go to college. Did not play football in college, but I did go to college, the college that I always dreamed of going to and all that. But back to the college football thing. The reason I bring this up is Lee Corso. Lee Corso is a legend. I call him the spirit, the living, breathing spirit of the sport of college football. This is a man that his whole life he has dedicated himself to this sport, to college athletics as a whole, specifically college football. And I say college athletics as a whole because he's a guy that I think he wants the absolute best for the youth of America. So I think even though he only talks about college football, he's only been in college football, he's only covered college football, I think college sports as a whole have a soft spot in his heart. Lee Corso has been on game day for forever. College game day has been something that I've always watched. It's always been, man, I can't wait to wake up on Saturday morning, turn the television on, see Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, right there. And others, because there's been different casts throughout the years. I always enjoyed watching this show because it's like no matter what happened during the week, it seems like when you get to Saturday morning, game day is on your television, everything goes away. You're getting ready, you're getting prepared for a great day of college football. Even if for some crazy reason, your day was going to be filled with not just sitting on your couch all day and watching football. If, say, you have a lot of plans that you just really can't get out of, and that's not cool. And it's, quite frankly, it's unacceptable. But, things happen. Sometimes we're unavoidably detained. As long as we get back for the primetime slate, that's all that matters. But even then, waking up, watching college game day, and getting at least a piece of that first noon kickoff game or games, it's just a good appetizer for what's to come. And Lee Corso has been putting on the headgear since 1996. He put his first headgear on in Columbus, Ohio. Put old Brutus, big old Brutus, right there on his head. In week 1, they will also be in Columbus, Ohio for the Texas-Ohio State game, where Lee Corso will be putting on his last headgear. He will be making his final appearance on college game day forever. That's it. It's something that I think they're going to have an astronomical amount of viewers. And quite frankly, I think it's going to be emotional. I know I'm going to be emotional because I love that dude. And I remember, seeing him on game day. I remember hearing his voice, seeing him in those NCAA video games where there was a version of game day there where when you would go into a game, he would actually put on a mascot head, in the pregame little video that plays. And you would always hope if you were playing with your favorite team in the game, you would always hope that he put your, the headgear of your mascot on. Obviously, right? And then you're in the game and you're on offense and you hit the little Ask Corso button and he would show you what play you should run and give you a little piece of advice. He was in the booth there for a long time, for years on ESPN, calling a bunch of games, aside Kirk Herbstreit. But it's all going to be over. And look, the dude is 90 years old. He just had a birthday. There's one thing that I won't accept, though, and I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way right now. No Corso slander. I will not accept that. I don't care if the guy is 190 years old. He is a national treasure. He is a gift to college football. He's a gift to college game day. And it's going to be so sad after week 1 when he's not on there anymore. I understand he can't be on there forever. He's 90 years old. But it's going to be really special, and I will be tuning in. But I'll also be tuning into this August 22nd, tonight, as this podcast is coming out, Friday. They're going to have a Lee Corso special on ESPN at 9 p.m. Eastern, and that is a must-watch as well. And I encourage you to watch that, and if you can't watch it, record it. If you can't record it, you can find it on the internet somewhere. You can watch anything on the internet. But that's going to be really special, and I'm just thinking about Lee Corso. It just really brings me down to the core of what always has made me love this sport so much, really care about it, and just this fandom that we have. And I think college football is the greatest sport in the world, and I think the fandom is unmatched. I don't think that any other sport in America, if we're talking about America specifically, the United States, I don't think the NFL, yeah, there's big fandom. I know there are environments in certain places. I know Seattle's a pretty good football environment up there for the Seahawks. But it's just not the same feel. And there's no other sport in this country that gives you that deep-rooted, traditional pageantry that college football does. And I think that it has to do with the college itself. Because in professional sports, the teams are organizations. You and I could be a fan of an NFL team. But there's a good chance that we've never been a part of that team in any way, and we never will. When it comes to a college, there's a great chance that you and I, if we both did go to college, which I did, and if you didn't, that's fine. But I am a piece of that college. I feel like I am part of that college because I went there. I'm a member of the Alumni Association. I give them money each year. Maybe you contribute to the collective. You buy tickets. You buy merch. All these things. You may donate extra money to them. You have a deep connection to this school. And even if you don't, even if you're a fan of a team that you didn't attend college with, you just love this team for whatever reason, you love this school for whatever reason, that's fine too. I just feel like there's a deeper emotional connection in college football. And the unique traditions throughout the country are unmatched anywhere. The only thing that is as close to the fandom and the pageantry and the, I guess you could say, tradition of college football too, could be maybe European soccer. And if you think, Brandon, you just said that, I'm turning this garbage off and I'm deleting this, I'm blocking you on everything that I can possibly block you on. Okay. I'm not going to talk about soccer on this pod. I'm not going to talk about Europeans on this pod. I know we just talked about Dublin, Ireland, but they're playing football over there. Thank God. They need something like that over there. The reason I bring up European soccer, they call it football, but it's soccer. Okay, don't at me. Have you seen the crowds over there for their matchups? They are absolutely nuts. Those people go wild. You seen a whiteout at Penn State, right? You can't sit there and tell me that everybody in that stadium, look, okay, it looks good on TV. And maybe Penn State is not a good example for this, but you see Penn State whiteout. Those people over there in Europe, you could tell them to wear fuchsia and orange Every single person that walks into that stadium is going to be wearing fuchsia and orange. Those people take their game very seriously. You've seen those videos of people, they'll be like it looks like half the crowd's on fire. There's like flares everywhere, smoke everywhere. Those people are crazy. From what I've noticed, that's the only in the world comparable thing that, to the fandom of this sport. So enough rambling on about that, and let's get to what's really going to matter here. And this is going to matter if I'm right. It's not going to matter if I'm wrong, however. And this is my 2025/2026 college football playoff prediction. The conference champions, the highest ranked conference champions, do not automatically get the first round bye. So they get a guaranteed spot, but it is 1 through 12. How it should have been last season. Just the best 12 teams. So here we go. So starting off in the first round, number 12 Boise State going to Austin, Texas to play the number 5 ranked Texas Longhorns. Moving on down, number 9 Arizona State at number 8 Notre Dame. Number 11 Illinois is a Fighting Illini making it to the playoff. Luke Altmaier getting it done, putting the team on his back. They make it in. They got to play number 6 Oregon, though, and that's going to be tough. And then the final first-round playoff game, number 10 Miami. So they lose the ACC championship game, but they're still good enough to make it to the playoffs. All right. Carson Beck, that's good for you, buddy. You got a new change of scenery. Still on a successful team. Who are they going to play? The number 7th ranked Georgia Bulldogs. Miami going to Sanford Stadium to play Georgia in the first round of the playoffs. Are you kidding me? Carson Beck being welcomed home, welcomed back to his old stomping grounds there. Can you imagine, folks, if this happened? I'm sure Carson Beck will be very well received, right? Not. That is exciting right there. That's one of those games that, and if you're like me, you're going through all these scenarios, I'm sure that you get giddy too when you put a couple matchups together and you just imagine seeing that. That's that's some good stuff right there. So as we move on to the quarterfinal playoffs, keep in mind here, the 4 byes are number 1 Alabama, number 2 Penn State, number 3 Clemson, number 4 Ohio State. In the first quarterfinal playoff game, it's Texas and Ohio State. The next one is Notre Dame versus Alabama, then Oregon versus Clemson, then Georgia versus Penn State. My graphic is incorrect here. Oh, no. So, Ohio State beats Texas, Alabama beats Notre Dame, Oregon beats Clemson, and Penn State beats Oregon. So, some good matchups there. Texas and Ohio State, a rematch from week 1. How about them apples? And I don't know about you. Is this Ohio State getting revenge for Texas beating them in week 1? Or is this Ohio State sealing the deal, beating Texas twice in 1 year? Boy, when you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. The old notion of okay, I beat you earlier in the season, you're going to beat me, or we got beat, we're going to beat you the next time we play. Not those things don't apply when you get into this playoff. The stakes are so high. That's going to be a good matchup. Notre Dame and Alabama. This is an old college, national championship game here from years ago where Alabama just wiped Notre Dame off the face of the earth. Alabama wins that game. Oregon beats Clemson. Georgia loses to Penn State. So right now, in the semifinals, you've got Ohio State playing Alabama. Then you've got Oregon playing Penn State. Another rematch from earlier in the season. Alabama beats Ohio State. They move on to the national championship. Penn State beats Oregon. And then you've got the Crimson Tide and the Nittany Lions. What happens? Does James Franklin win the big game here? Does he get the big victory? Does he get put on the mountaintop before he leaves for the SEC? Look, hey, anything can happen. I think James Franklin's going to end up back in the SEC. Or does Kalen DeBoer, in his second season with the Crimson Tide, after taking the reins from Nick Saban, the greatest coach of all time, after the fan base, they won plenty of games, but they lost some games they shouldn't have. Fan base is kind of indifferent. Fan base isn't sure what to think. Fan base lost some games. We don't like losing. No worries, Crimson Tide fans. Alabama wins the national title January 19th, 2026. They add to their trophy case. Kalen DeBoer begins to pave his own way. That it's not just Nick Saban that can win at Alabama. It's not just Bear Bryant that can win at Alabama. There's a third coach that's going to put his name in that hat. It's Kalen DeBoer. New OC coming into town. You got Ty Simpson at quarterback. The run game's going to improve. The defense is going to be nasty. Ty Simpson going to be able to open up that pass with all that running game. Alabama fights through. They beat Penn State. They become the national champions. And there you have it. I'd like to see your predictions. I want to see your brackets because everybody with internet, everybody with a device has been creating their own playoff brackets, their own predictions of the season. So why not? This is mine. I'd really like to see yours. But that's going to do it for this episode of College Football Y'all. I'm Brandon Taylor. We're going into week 0. Next week, it is crunch time. Week 1 will be here. We'll have 3 shows. We got plenty to talk about, plenty to get in. We got odds, betting, if you're the betting type. We're going to go through all the spreads and all those things. Love doing that. And much, much more. We got so much content up ahead this season. Just stay tuned for it. Brandon T. CFB, Brandon Taylor CFB. It's going to be one of those two on all the platforms, including YouTube. Like and subscribe if you like it. Subscribe to this podcast feed as well. That way, as soon as this thing drops, it'll drop into your feed there on whatever podcast platform that you prefer. So, that being said, thanks so much for joining me here on the pod. College Football Y'all. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.